Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are recording.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. This meeting is open to statements of no more than 5 members of the public or no more than 2 minutes in length each. Mr. Taylor, do we have anyone here for public input?
No member of the public has joined the meeting, sir.
Thank you. Item 3, any late additions or deletions for the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, there is a late item. It is the 2021-2022 municipal objectives. The attachment for that is under 8.1, Rise and Report.
Okay. Are we okay to leave it under 8.1 or do we have to move it to 18.1?
No, Mr. Mayor, that can remain under 8.1. The item was already on there. It's just the report that came as a late attachment.
I will need a mover that the February 1st, 2021 regular council meeting agenda with the addition of the report and 8.1 be adopted. Who will move? Councillor Howe, second. Councillor Leach. All those in favor? Carried. Mr. Taylor, any delegations?
No delegations, Mr. Mayor?
Okay, and no statutory hearings. I'm looking for someone to move that the January 18th, 2021 regular council meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep, Councillor Howe, second. Councillor Leach. It's on the table. Any errors or omissions? Councillor Weeb.
Yeah, there's 2 on page 10. The meeting that Councillor Hopful attended as my alternate is the Northern Economic Development Initiatives Committee, or NEDI, not the Northern Development. That's Councillor Leach's position. And the second one was the meeting that I had with Mr. Deniger and Mrs. Bussey. I'm not the council rep for the Miyazaki House. Councillor Leach is, and I was there as a board member of the Miyazaki House.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank
Weeb.
you, Councillor, for clarification. These were both under your council report?
Yes, it was just, that's right.
Thank you.
Well, actually, I think the one was under Councillor Hopful's report.
Okay. Mr. Taylor, we good with those changes?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. The omissions or errors have been corrected. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. There being no business arising from the minutes, we'll move on to Rise and Report. Under 8.1, we have the 2021-2022 municipal objectives. And we all have the report that was derived from the work from our numerous plannings and especially our wrap-up one for January 26th. So staff, you want to address this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes. As the corporate officers noted, for anyone who's looking at the agenda online, it has been amended late last night with the report and the updated document. My fancy technical way of showing it here. It is online, and if anybody's looking for another version of it, just let me know. So the thing we'll be focusing on primarily is the fancy, colorful list of proposed municipal objectives, which, as council is well aware, took a fair amount of time and effort and very deep dive discussions, going through the process first of identifying the mission and vision, and council actually updated the vision for the district of Lillooet, keeping in mind that the vision proposed here is for the municipality itself, the district of Lillooet. And although it parallels the community's vision through the OCP process, this vision is intended to be short-term and achievable within our lifetimes. Following from that, keeping the values in mind, which were reaffirmed in our workshops as still council's values, which is a good sign. From that, council developed new goals for the next couple of years. Reviewing those briefly, it's to have a safe and healthy community, to be attractive to economic growth, to have diverse and attainable housing, to be a trusted partner of Indigenous communities, and to have a well-managed, sustainable infrastructure. So these are goals the council hopes to achieve in the next 2 years, or at least have a good stab at them. So out of those 5 goals, all the objectives that are proposed in the attached colorful document are all intended to achieve those goals. So there may be side projects, there may be things that come up when opportunities arise, whether it's a grant or a partnership or someone from the community steps up and wants to work with the district. But ultimately, anything that happens has to point to achieving these goals. And so these goals will always take priority in the mind of staff when we're allocating our time and money. What can I say about this is that the hope is to have these adopted very much as presented or slightly modified today, unless council wants to move some things around. And then following from that, staff will keep all of these objectives in mind when bringing proposals to council throughout the budget process in the coming months. So we have staff have come up with a laundry list of projects we'd like to do. But once these objectives are adopted by council, we then have to re-examine this laundry list of projects and make sure that we're prioritizing and suggesting ones that align with supporting these objectives first, not just pet projects that staff think are a great idea. They have to actually accomplish the goals the council set out to achieve. And then in all the spare time we have, we'll get other things done that we can, but these are our priorities. So if there's any questions?
Councillor Hoppel?
Gosh, I'm scared to touch anything. Everything's so little on my iPad. I have a question under the well-managed sustainable infrastructure. We have proposed volume-based metered water rates and implement a mock billing in the second quarter of 2022. So can you just, you or Rory or through the mayor, just talk about the batteries and the meters and the ones that aren't installed yet, and like I said, the batteries, because I know that there was some problem with the batteries and I think they were under warranty, but I just want to make sure that everything is in place before we tell people that we are going to in fact start a mock billing again. Thanks.
Thank you. Excellent question. I will start and then Rory can jump in and make it technically more correct. But yes, the batteries in most water meters for municipalities are not actually user serviceable. In this case, the district is the user. They are covered under warranty, so that when a battery fails in a water meter, the district should actually just send that water meter back to the manufacturer after swapping it out with one that we have spare on hand. So for us to try to deal with those directly ourselves would actually void the warranty. As if we could even get a spare battery for it, because they want to replace them themselves. They are sealed components. So yes, there will be dying batteries throughout time. There always are. They'll be dealt with and replaced as they need to be. And as we move forward to actually having a meter-based billing system, that system, like in any other municipality that has it, is designed to take account for failed meters, or where meters haven't been installed for whatever reason. It could be a challenge of the building or just in a rollout. Even meters that are installed in communities where they have nearly 100% meters, by the time they're done, sometimes they have to restart the whole project. And it's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. By the time you get to one end, you start on the first end again. So there will always be some meters out of service, but to start with the mock billing system, but eventually the actual billing system, tends to average out the use of of either that individual property, if there's enough data on it, or similar properties of that type, so that the users build fairly, even though we don't necessarily know their exact usage. So there's no need to wait for 100% perfect metering before we actually start the process of mock billing or real billing. And Rory, if you got anything to add, feel free to unmute and jump in.
No, I think Jeremy summed it up quite well. There is definitely some groundwork and some catching up to do with our software is a good example, but also our hardware as well. So we're working on that part of it right now.
And I believe we're looking at having all the, or at least the vast majority of the water meters installed by the end of this year, which is why the timing for the second quarter of next year seems feasible to us, that we can start the process of developing and communicating to the public what the metering system would look like and how it's intended to be revenue neutral, but just more fairly balancing the costs to those who use it. But we can start the background work while we're still finishing off the installation of meters, and then start the mock billing and the real campaign of letting everyone know how it's going to work. And from that mock billing in next year, we'll actually be able to gather data that we can't get in any other way other than to actually just jump in and see what data we get and listen to the feedback from users who, much like when BC Assessment assesses houses, it's not always perfect, and only the person whose house it is really knows the situation there. So if we find a billing is off or data is missing, it's that opportunity through the mock billing system to find out what's going on and how we can address it.
Okay,
Thank
Councillor. Okay, Councillor Wiebe, you had a question?
I did. I had a couple actually. At the top part, safe and healthy communities, where the skate park is to enter into an MOU with the district. Does the skate park, does the Borden BMX Society look after that? Does the rec manager look after that? Does the district look after that? Like, I understand we need to do it, and I see the timeline on it. I know we're also in discussions of rebuilding the wooden one, upgrading it so that the youth can at least have something until we get an exact place and the grant money and et cetera to build the proper skate park.
Thank you for that question. Through the mayor, if I may answer that. Yes, it is the Recreation Department through Bangor who would be working with the society to come up with some sort of an agreement. The first agreement would probably be a temporary one just for the wooden skate park so that they can do building temporary ones for the next year or so, hopefully not longer than necessary, but let's have something there for people to enjoy. So that would be in the form likely of a license of occupation, which basically ensures that everybody understands who's responsible for what and to keep everybody out of trouble. Once it's determined the feasibility study regarding the Statlium Cultural Center, we would then have a better idea of whether or not it's prudent to enter into an actual long-term lease agreement with the society for a permanent skate park in that location or another location if it just doesn't work in that spot. So we hope to have that information by sometime in the second quarter of this year. That project did get delayed a little bit, and there was a few pounds of reading for Suzanne Denbeck, who's learning everything there is to know about the last 20 years of this project. But it's been good, and we need to do engagement with the communities. So that will take some time, but from that, we'll have a better idea of when we need to enter into a lease agreement and what that would look like. But in the interim, there's no reason to delay the temporary skate park. Have I answered the question?
Yes, you did. Thank you. And my second question was, under the well-managed and sustainable infrastructure, it says create a needs assessment for one municipal facility per year to aid in development of capital budget and 5-year financial plans. And it's on there twice with two different quarters. So
Yes, that
it's
should
on
be.
there as third from the top and third from the bottom. So I'm just wondering if it's supposed to like just roll over the years, or was that an error?
That is me just missing it. It should look very much like the one about the middle of the group that says finance doing one thing per year. So it is actually one item, and it just repeats each year. So yeah, I will adjust that in the document. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Leach?
Hello, everyone. Mr. Deniger, I'm just wondering if there is a way that we can, so under the well-managed sustainable infrastructure, second from the top, the prioritized road maintenance based on the 2016 road evaluation project. I'm wondering, just for the community's sake, if we could repost that 2016 road evaluation report, just so everyone can read up on it, so we know exactly what that says, because it was a bit of time ago. Yeah, my words are
I
weird.
think that's an excellent idea, and yes, I think Roy's hearing that, but we will repost that because it's a great idea.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Councillor Howe, go ahead.
Just curious about the, under trusted partners, the last objective is the public works yard and potentially looking at moving that. Last time, the last discussion I was present for, we weren't having to move it. It looked like it wasn't necessary anymore. So just wondering if something changed, or?
Without speaking about things I can't in an open meeting, what I can say is that having dug into the legal aspects of it, it is not black and white. It is not cut and dry. There are legal nuances that need to be discussed in a closed session. And it goes even beyond the legal. There's a community relationship matter as well, which is why I've actually moved it from, I think I had it under well-managed sustainable infrastructure to begin with. And when I thought more about one of the primary reasons of considering this is that it really is about community relations as much as it is about infrastructure. It has an impact on how we maintain our infrastructure, but there's more to it than that. So if council wishes to go into a closed session, we could do that at the end of this meeting and discuss it further. But I don't feel it's appropriate to talk about it openly right now.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure I understood what that was about based off of my existing knowledge. So that's fine. Whenever council's ready to go into it, we can schedule that later too. It's not a rush. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or input from council? No. Then hearing none, I take it that the 5 items of resolution, we haven't changed anything. The only thing that's happened is a slight adjustment in the table. Am I correct in that? All right.
That's correct.
What I'm seeking then is someone to move that council pass the following resolution. That's the 2021-2022 municipal objectives, file 0530-02, as is written on this memo file, all 5 items. I don't intend to read them all, folks. Councillor Weeb moves, second Councillor Leach. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Great. Thank you, council, for the hard work, and thank you, staff. Item 8.2, Society for Wellness Instructional Mobility through Swims request for 10 months pool opening. Staff?
I'm hoping Mr. Gare is on the line with us.
I am here.
Excellent. Would you like to talk about this?
Okay. I guess this is, to some extent, councillors, this is a review of the discussion that we had at the Committee of the Whole meeting last week. Obviously, the Swim Society is hoping to undertake a very ambitious fundraising campaign with a target of $200,000. And the goal of that campaign is to see the swimming pool open for 10 months of the year with a target date of September of 2021. In order to make this happen, staff will have to work with SWIMS in order to help them with accounting and possibly some other considerations. We will also have to SWIMS is asking us to provide a letter of support for them in addition to along with approval of their fundraising campaign so that they can apply. It'll help them to apply for grants, which is a big part of what they're needing to do in order to make this happen. I'll just the report that's part of your agenda goes over the particulars somewhat. Most of it was covered in our discussion as part of the Committee of the Whole. I'll just reiterate that the SWIMS proposal and the targets that they're setting for themselves in order to raise that $200,000. They want to raise $80,000 and $80,500 through the sales of pool passes, through the sale of advertising, through raising money for Looney Swims, and through fees from athletic teams. They hope to raise $17,600 through corporate and individual sponsorships. They hope to raise $46,000 from contributions from various levels of government, including the District of Lillooet, $22,875 through fundraising events. And on that note, there was a very successful polar bear swim event that was held on January 1st that has given them a very good start towards that goal. And they are looking to raise $53,000 in grants to run pool programs. The district would receive money. That $53,000 is basically money that we would receive from pool rentals from those programs running in the rec center pool. So that's what they're proposing to do. It's an ambitious undertaking. This is contingent on the district being willing to commit to basically just our historical, basically operational funding for the pool as well, and that is part of the $46,000 in contribution from government, and that covers it. As I said, we've discussed. We've had some discussion about this before. The SWIMS organization has gone to a lot of work to put this together, and they're hoping that council will give them the go-ahead to carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Gare. Any questions or clarification from council? Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question. If the district enters into this agreement with SWIMS, and then should the pool need several upgrades and or severe maintenance, as I know Mr. Gary had mentioned during the Committee of the Whole meeting, that could be something that happens after 10 months of consistent use on an old pool. What what is the responsibility of, what's the question I'm trying, is it within the agreement that the district then has to absolutely make sure that we do what we need to do to ensure that the pool is where it needs to be so that we can complete the 10 months in the agreement? So if that, let's say, means an additional 10 months of unforeseeable maintenance comes up, or sorry, $10,000 worth of unforeseeable maintenance comes up, we need to find a way to make that happen because we have an agreement that we have to uphold of a full 10-month run.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the question is not specifically addressed in the report or fully addressed in the discussions that I've had with SWIMS, but I would expect that short of a catastrophic failure of some terribly expensive piece of equipment, that the district would do what's necessary to maintain the equipment that we need to keep that pool open during the time that SWIMS is trying to make that 10-month 10-month opening happen. The good news is that we have addressed already a couple of major items in the last couple of years. One was the having to repair the sand filter, and the other was this year was the replacement of a pump. We're still trying to finalize all the flow rates and so forth for that pump installation, but we think we've come up with a solution for that now that's not going to be overly expensive. And I think the big mechanical pieces for the pool have been, some of them have been addressed, and there's every indication that we should be able to proceed without having to worry too much about major expenditures. Other than the HVAC system, again, is something that we've had to do repairs on as well. And I can't promise you that it's going to be, if we're operating in January, I can't promise you it's going to be super comfortable in the pool or the rest of the building with the heat trying to be shared all over the place. But the HVAC system should be operational as well after the repairs that we've made.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Anything else, Councillor Howell?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest perhaps in the agreement we propose a certain amount, like up to X amount of dollars in maintenance, unforeseeable maintenance costs. Would we then we would then not have to uphold this agreement for the 10 months? So up to 5,000 or 7,000, or perhaps during our budgeting process, we should make sure that we just have that little extra in the budget should that happen, so that we can uphold the agreement.
I'd have to defer to the CAO and the chief financial officer to some degree on that, but we really, what we're doing here is we're not really entering into an agreement. There's going to be no written agreement. It's basically we're going to encourage SWIMS to undertake this fundraising campaign, and if they are successful, we're going to hopefully the district will agree to contribute the same amount that they normally do, and we will open the pool in September, and we'll carry on. So I guess one way to address that would be that when we were looking at a tentative budget for a 10-month opening, we were quite conservative in our estimations of revenues. So I think that if this proposal is successful and goes ahead, I think we'll actually have additional revenues, in particular from programs that SWIMS will be running, that will actually help us address any additional maintenance costs that may come up. And we did allocate a significant amount for maintenance under the prospective budget that we prepared.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garrett. I'm happy to hear that there's not a forced ironclad agreement that's written. I think all parties should use their best efforts, and and reasonableness, and we'll get there in the end, and nobody's going to force anybody else out of it. Am I correct in that, Chief Financial Officer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to sort of move on what Bain was saying, there's unforeseen circumstances that come up, whether we're running the pool or Swims is running the pool, or it's 2 months or 10 months. There's always the chance of unforeseen circumstances coming up. We do have, the district does have a stabilization reserve, and that's what this reserve is in place for, is things such as this, one-time expenditures that weren't expected, emergency expenditures, things such as that. So we do have funds in place to be able to cover the district should something come up. I'm not saying $2 million worth of something, but you know, should something unforeseen come up, we do have reserves in place to deal with stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council? Councillor Wiebe, you got your hand partly up.
Yes, I was just going to move the motion as recommended and just make a statement that this is a phenomenal proposal, and I think we are more than lucky to have these people in the community that will take this on. And I'm hoping I can steal some of them to help me do a proposal for the skateboard park. So I would like to make the motion that we
Councillor
pass
Wiebe.
staff recommendation.
Councillor Wiebe. Okay, we've got someone ready to move it, and we'll read it, and it would be nice if you second it. Councillor Leach.
All right. I would like to move that the Society for Wellness, Instruction and Mobility Through Swimming, or SWIMS, proposal to proceed with the $200,000 fundraising campaign to enable the Rec Center swimming pool to open in September of 2021 be supported, and that staff be directed to work with SWIMS on accounting for sale and pool passes and other considerations, and further that staff be directed to provide a letter of support to SWIMS.
Thank you. Councillor Wiebe, you second. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Well done, folks. Okay, we'll move on to item 9, correspondence. Any councillor wish to remove an item of this listed correspondence for discussion? Councillor Howe?
9.3.
9.3, that's the Rio Tinto Kenny Dam Emergency Plan.
Yes.
All right, that will move to 18.1. Any others? Okay, I need someone to move that the correspondence included in the information report dated January 26th be received for information, less item 3, Rio Tinto Kenny Dam Emergency Plan. Who will so move? Councillor Howe, second. Councillor Wiebe. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Item 10, no reports from committees of councils and commissions. Item 11, reports and presentations of staff. 11.1, early budget approval for housing needs assessment. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The province requires that local governments produce a housing needs report by April 2022 and then to update it every 5 years. A housing needs report is intended to strengthen the ability of local governments to understand the kind of housing that are most needed in their communities and to help inform local plans, policies, and development decisions. Housing needs reports are required to contain statements of key areas of local needs, including affordable housing, rental housing, special needs housing, seniors housing, family housing, and shelters and housing for people at risk of homelessness. The number of housing units required to meet current and anticipated housing needs for at least the next 5 years by housing type, and the number and percentage of households in core housing and extreme core housing need. The district has received a grant for the housing needs assessment in the amount of $15,000 from the Union of British Columbia Municipalities, or UBCM. The grant can cover numerous costs, including consultants and public engagement costs. In order to keep the costs within funds awarded by the province, Modus, our official community plan consultants, has proposed to piggyback the assessment with the ongoing work on the official community plan. This includes public engagement. The province will release $7,500 immediately and release the additional amount at project completion. Even with the grant funds covering 100% of the costs of this assessment, I am told by the bean counter that we still need to include these costs in the budget. To that end, staff are recommending that $15,000 for the housing needs assessment be included in the 2021 budget, and that the 2021 budget item for the housing needs assessment receive early budget approval. Any questions about budget process can be referred to the aforementioned counter of beans. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I see in your RFD, you've got a contract award that's set up there as well. Because as you mentioned, Modus is our official community planner. Do they have a track record with BC Housing? Have they achieved good applications and funds that have been approved by BC Housing in the province?
I don't believe that is generally no, I'm unmuted. Good. I don't believe that generally is a service that they provide. This is just the cataloging of need, not the application for housing.
Okay, I was just curious because, well, anyway, yeah. Anything else from Councillor? Councillor Hoppel.
Okay, so I'm kind of wondering the same thing with Modus. Is Modus set in stone, or are there other options out there that we could look at? I mean, I have no problem with the recommendation that it be included in the budget. I'm just wondering about Modus itself and if there's room for discussion on that.
If council would prefer for this to go out to tender, it could, but that would protract the timeline for getting this done significantly.
If I could jump in there, I'm struggling personally with a lot of this community engagement, lacking the face-to-face. And I know we've got this COVID thing that we're dealing with. The OCP, and I know Modus is doing a great job, so is staff, but I'm just not comfortable. And I'm really, if we have to postpone, this is my own personal opinion, I just feel that we're losing a lot if we just allow too much online or Zoom or Teams or whatever the case might be. I just grit my teeth through this process. Both the OCP and this housing needs assessment are crucial and critical to our communities, no doubt about it. And the tendency for community apathy is always there. We knew this from the beginning. And I hearken back, the new staff wasn't here. When we had our first housing meeting, what do you recall the turnout that we got? It was absolutely phenomenal. It was well over 150 people there. So as I say, I'm just leery about rushing into utilizing the requirement that COVID keeps us distanced, and wondering if we shouldn't consider waiting until we can get a little bit more face-to-face. I don't know, just one opinion here. Yes, Councillor Leach.
There we go. A question for Mr. Taylor. Did Modus not help us write the grant for this?
Modus supplied a timeline and a draft budget so that we could apply for it within the budget. Yes. Yeah, they did not help us write the grant application. That was the district grant writer.
Okay, and the timeline that they provided, is that set in stone for us receiving the grant money? So if we were to delay because of the public engagement that Mr. or Mayor Bussey is speaking of, would that jeopardize us losing the grant?
I don't have the timeline for completion of the grant in front of me, but I do believe it's within a year. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor Howe?
In light of timeline, if we've only a year from the date of receiving the grant, I don't know that I think the last cohort to receive the COVID vaccine, should they choose it, is August, and that's just their first. So I don't know that we would have the time to get through the whole process before, without having to, while meeting COVID restrictions. Like I think we're sort of playing with fire here.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Leach?
Also, just wanting to refer back to the municipal objectives that we just passed earlier in this meeting. Under the diverse and attainable housing goal, we have passed that complete a housing needs assessment and publish a report on the findings by fall 2021 to inform and support related policies, initiatives, and funding opportunities. So we are saying we will have this report done by this fall. So I don't feel comfortable necessarily putting it out to tender,
Oh, okay, thank you. Councillor Hoppel?
Okay, so I understand that we've been working on this a long time, but I'm just wondering if we can just postpone it for 2 weeks. Can I make a recommendation that we just postpone it for 2 weeks? I just would like to find out a little bit more about Motus and their experience with this, how they feel about it, what they offer. I don't know anything about what they're offering, but I have seen other companies come to Lillooet, do presentations, so I've kind of got an idea. I'm just a little worried about what they offer. So I'm just wondering if we can postpone this again for 2 weeks until the next council meeting, so we can just gather a bit more information.
Okay. Just to be clear, from my point of view, I'm not looking at months and months and months or a year or whatever the case might be. We've got the present public health order is in force until February 8 midnight, and assuming that there's the potential for a little bit of relaxing and some comfort, you never know in terms of utilizing still the social distancing and lobbying people to come in for the various inputs. But I'll listen to the rest of council. Any other questions or comments?
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I would just like to point out that the housing needs assessment is not the same kind of project as an OCP is. It is predominantly a data gathering exercise. Most of the data is gathered from Stats Canada and BC Stats. So the requirements for engagement aren't as stringent as they are, say, for the official community plan process.
Gotcha. But from my perspective, in my dealings with BC Housing and their people, there's a natural flow in terms of whoever or what group is doing the needs assessment, carrying it through to the next phase and achieving the level of funding, whether it's from CMHC or other places, seed funding, to get into the next phase. So that's my concern. That's all that I'm looking at. Councillor Hoppel?
So just to piggyback on that, where would Motus go after that? That's the kind of questions like I'm wondering. If Motus was to do this, would they become the consultants for the project if we were to have some land and we wanted to build upon that? Or would it be better to look at a different company that would do all of those steps together as one, That's why I'd just like to find out a little bit more information about what Modus does in the next couple of weeks. Just, yeah.
Sure. To touch on that, Mr. Mayor, the contract would be just for the housing needs assessment to fall within the grant funds that were awarded by the province, so that the district doesn't need to put any of its own funds into it. And then what we do with the housing needs assessment after, whether it's identifying lands for development or taking that information to put prescriptive zoning over properties, as well as working on the zoning bylaw in 2021, we could cross that bridge when we come to it, and that's if the district takes on its own, if the district decides to become a developer itself and in those situations.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Leach.
And so just to clarify a bit about also with what Councillor Hopple has said, is the needs assessment is going to look like data that the district can use, but it'll also be available for developers and or societies who also wish to go into the housing game per se. So it's I just want to be clear, like, this is not something, we're not tied into Modus in the next phase. It's clearly just a data gathering document, correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from council? Councillor Wiebe.
Yes, through the mayor. I only sat in on a couple of the housing meetings with Milo Housing Society. And I can't really quote names because I really don't remember what they were, but I think there were a couple of places that were kind of recommended or had been used by others, or on it goes. So I'm kind of in favor with putting it in the budget and taking that couple of weeks to maybe feel out 2 or 3 places, maybe not put it out for an RFP that could take months, but maybe just feel out a couple of different places and see who offers what and go from there. Because I prefer to have my roads connecting through the bridges rather than building each bridge as it goes. And that's just, yeah, if somebody else offers to go farther and farther, that might be the better perspective for us. I just, I think we should definitely put it in the budget so that our finance officer can get on with her daily dealings of getting us together for that. But I don't have a problem with deferring the other for a couple of weeks and see what kind of research we can come out with.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from Councillor Howell? You're next. Yeah.
I'm just curious. I'm not sure who this would be directed at, but through the mayor, what is our housing society like? Are they aware that we're looking at Modus? I mean, I assume they would because of the agenda, but has anyone spoken with them about their thoughts and concerns? Where are they at?
Oh, not that I'm aware of. The newly formed housing committee is struggling to have kept going, so we're unsure of that scenario. The bottom line is that BC Housing is not going to issue millions of dollars to a society that doesn't have the background or experience in order to operate it. And also, subsequent to the housing society and our major big meeting kickoff just shortly after we got elected, the province came and said that societies will no longer be doing the needs assessment, but the individual municipalities were. So that's the state that we're in right now, Councillor Hall.
Okay, thank you for the reminder.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, I hear that there's a bit of a expression of concern in terms of awarding the contract award right off the bat, but not for the funding.
Mr. Mayor, I believe
we
you might have
handle-
an.
Yeah, go
Mr.
ahead.
Mayor, I believe you might have an earlier version of the report. The report on the agenda does not actually recommend sole sourcing.
Oh. Approval. So it doesn't sole source to Modus then? Or does-
I'm
Let me
going to
jump
pass
in.
this over to the CAO at this point.
Sorry,
Okay.
let me jump in. The original draft version of this report did bring up the idea of sole sourcing as being something that staff were asking council to reaffirm. But looking at district policy, which is adopted by council and exists until it's changed by council, does give staff the authority to sole source for a number of very specific reasons, including timing and knowledge of the project and the community and cost. And Modus actually ticks those three boxes and falls under the financial limit that's allowed for staff to do sole sourcing. So there's actually no need for staff to come to council technically under policy to make those decisions for consultants.
I understand that, and we're not going to decide, except we have expressed concerns, and that's you put in here in terms of an RFD contract award. And it's listed, outlined here. So as I say, we fully understand, we're here to approve the money, not tell you what to do. But if we have concerns and we have questions, we're going to bring them up.
Oh yes, I agree. I'm not trying to dissuade you from bringing up those ideas. So I just wanted to be clear as to why the report was changed to not include the sole sourcing. It's because it's something that should never have been included in the initial report. Having those concerns about Modus, completely valid. They're good points. Staff are going to talk about that obviously after this meeting. I just do want to be clear that the reason this was brought for early approval is because we're sensitive to the timing issue, and that Modus was prepared to start this engagement with the community and data gathering actually at the end of last year. It was part of their original proposal for doing the OCP. So in order to align with their existing engagement, they need to start this week. So that's where staff's concern and any delays exist, but we will talk to them about that, and we can bring back in 2 weeks to council for the committee of the whole some further information about why we're recommending going with Modus and what some of the alternatives are if council wishes to override policy, if that's satisfying. But it doesn't require a change in the resolution here in the agenda.
No, or we can take this resolution and vote on it then too.
Yes.
Because I don't think that nobody in council has the appetite to override policy. Correct? I can hear that in council. So, okay. Anything else from council? I need someone to move that the $15,000 for housing needs assessment be included in the 2021 budget, and that the 2021 budget item for housing needs assessment receive early budget approval. Who will so move? Councillor Wiebe, second Councillor Howe. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those for? 3, 4, and I vote against. It's carried. Okay, 11.2. Council support for Lillooet Tribal Council's capital investment analysis, Statlium Cultural Center grant application. Mr. Denegar?
Yes, I'll speak to this one. So pretty straightforward. The LTC has put in an application to the NDIT for the Statlium Cultural Center project. Our communities have all been working together on this. Suzanne Denbeck, who we all know, who's been working on economic development and tourism things, has also been working with the Tribal Council on this project. And there's a great bridge between our communities on this project because it does affect all of us. So all they're looking for here is an official letter of support in the hopes that they will get the grant funding.
Okay. Any questions, clarification from council? Okay, there being none, Need someone to move that the Lillooet Tribal Council's grant application to the Northern Development Initiative Trust for the Capital Investment Analysis Statland Cultural Center project be supported. Who will move? Councillor Leach, second Councillor Howe. No further discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Item 11.3, 2021 UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Emergency Social Services Application. Who will speak to that?
I will, Mr. Mayor. It's Darren Oakey, Director of Protective Services. Yes, thank you for hearing me. So yeah, I bring this forward to the council. It's our annual submission to UBCM for a joint submission this time. The Squamish-Lillooet Regional Districts, we do provide them support and services for their communities. So this project, they've actually stepped up and asked if they could be the primary lead on this, which is all right by me. And I will be supporting them for sure. But what this project is to get more training for our ESS staff, our volunteers, sorry. But also take in, and it will encompass, we'll invite First Nation communities from around, as well as the SLRD Area A and Area B people to participate in the training. We're looking at a 2-day training session, as well as with this, we'll hire a consultant to look at our operating guidelines and how we're operating as a reception center, as well as a group lodging. So this is a little bit different than what we've done in the past, because let's say if the Yalakan Valley or smaller communities from around Goldbridge or such need to be evacuated or relocated temporarily, this training will provide that and teach our volunteers how to act that in a larger setting. So one of the exercises is a full-on exercise of setting up not a reception center, but also a group lodging center as well. So we'll be able to utilize what we've accumulated in the last 4 years and put it to training, which we're really excited about. So our Red Cross affiliates will be involved in that as well. And hopefully we'll get some more volunteers out of this, is what our hopes are, from all communities around. And with this application, we'll also be able to include some more equipment into our cache here. So yeah, I think it's all along. It's the 100% grant will be paid by the UBCM if we're successful. So there's no cost to the district or district level upfront there is, but we'll get all those costs back. With jointly entering into this partnership with them, it gives us $25,000 each. So it's a total of a $50,000 grant for us to get all these things done. And yeah, I think it's a good thing. I'm happy that the SLRD is participating with us more and getting involved. So yeah, if there's any questions, I'd be willing to take them.
Thank you, Mr. Oakey. Any questions from council? There being none, I'll ask that someone move that staff submit a joint application with the Squamish Lillooet Regional District to the 2021 Local Government Program Services Union of British Columbia Municipalities Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Program for Emergency Social Services Funding Stream, and that the SLRD be appointed as primary partner to apply for, receive, and manage funding for this grant on behalf of both partners. Who will move? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Leach. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Item 11.4. Sorry, somebody speak? Oh.
I just said thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Item 11.4, council support for a TELUS Universal Broadband Fund application.
I'll introduce this one. This one makes me very happy. TELUS has approached us and they're very eager to bring high-speed internet through our community. They finally found a grant program that works with their plans. As some people have heard, Shaw Cable is currently in the process of running high-speed fiber through Lillooet. And I guess TELUS is going to try to catch up to them. So we'll have a competition and actual choices in town for 1.5 gigabit high-speed internet. So if council wants that, all you need to do is vote yes, and we'll get a letter out to them.
Thank you, Mr. Denegar. Any questions, clarification from staff? From council, sorry. Good news. Okay. I need someone to move the TELUS Universal Broadband Fund application to Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, as included in the report dated Jan 28, 2021, be supported, and that the mayor sign a letter of support on behalf of council. Who will move? Councillor Hoffel, second Councillor Howe. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Well, good that they start fighting for us, that's for sure. Item 11.5, BC Hydro Street Lighting Replacement Project. Who will address that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rory Card, Director of Public Works and Utilities. So as promised, I'm here to present the report tonight for an update on the BC Hydro Streetlight Replacement Project. Way back in July of 2020, municipalities across the province were approached by BC Hydro with a plan to replace all of the HPS, or high pressure sodium bulb streetlights. The replacement of the HPS lights is to coincide with a mandate from the federal government to reduce or actually get rid of the use of PCBs, polychlorobiphenyls, which most of us know are quite toxic and cancer causing. There's other benefits, though, noted by BC Hydro for the streetlight replacement. Basically, with the LEDs that they plan to replace these HPS with, there's lower maintenance costs and ultimately lower electrical costs as well. As some of you know, LEDs are light emitting diodes and are quite a bit more efficient than the HPS bulbs, but also safer as well because they do not contain PCBs. I was able to attend a streetlight engagement session workshop where we discussed rolling out this project, but also the choices that we were going to have to make as far as color choices, and mainly with regard to Kelvin or color temperature. Some of you are aware LEDs are known for their ability to illuminate quite well, especially with regard to road signs and markings. So we were given the opportunity to choose where we wanted these color temperatures. And one of the things that we learned, or staff learned during the streetlight engagement session, was the placement of these lights is important, and best practice is to use the bluish, or what I call bluish white light to help illuminate major crosswalks or major intersections, where the yellowish or warmer light is used in more residential areas to help prevent light pollution, and where markings and things like that aren't as necessary to illuminate. So in August 2020, the district submitted our detailed light selection based on our wattages throughout the district. The information would also be used for any streetlight repairs that would need to be made in the meantime, or converted beforehand. This project isn't going to happen over the course of a year. This is a 2 to 3 year project, and BC Hydro is hoping to get it done by 2024 to meet the deadline of 2025 to get rid of the PCBs and streetlight fixtures. So we inventoried all the streetlights in the district, and it was good we did, because we did find some inconsistencies. Speaking with speaking with BC Hydro, our inventory didn't line up perfectly with their inventory. So it was found that the district currently is being billed for 217 streetlights. However, it was found that the number is actually 227. So it was good to find these things out beforehand. And BC Hydro doesn't know why this discrepancy occurred, but they said it was common among many municipalities that they've been working with. Again, during the street light engagement session, BC Hydro presented an estimated and fairly simple plan of increasing hydro rates of $1 per streetlight for a period of 3 years, but this actually wasn't the case. And as reflected in the report below, BC Hydro proposed an interim LED street lighting rate, which deviated from the initially proposed rate. And starting on December 1st, 2020, the BCUC, or British Columbia Utilities Commission, approved an interim rate, which should only be charged after the replacement of the HPS with LED bulbs. And as you can see in the report, a temporary supplemental charge was also approved. The charge was intended to recover the undepreciated value of the current streetlights, the current HPS streetlights being removed before their end of life. And the charge that they came up with was $2.06 per month per streetlight for all streetlights billed to the district under rate schedule 1701. And rate schedule 1701 is just the rate schedule that applies to all unmetered streetlights, which we have 227 in the district. So the district did reach out to BC Lighting Support to give us an exact breakdown of what wattages were where. So we have a breakdown of 157 streetlights at 75 watts, 65 streetlights at 114 watts, and 5 streetlights at 162 watts. With the interim rate charges applied to the district streetlights, it equates to what would not seem like a whole lot, but it is still a cost to the district, and that's noted in the report. So BC Hydro Lighting Support admitted that the formula used to calculate the rate changes was complicated, and I'll admit it was complicated. The application sent to BCUC was about 400 pages. Staff discussed the implications of the rate change, noting that the timing is not ideal. Of course, we're in COVID-19 times now, and we're expecting or projecting low revenues. So we never want to see rates increase, especially during a time like this. As well, proposing a new rate structure after many communities have already set their budgets or worked out their budgets it seems unreasonable. Another point of discussion with staff stemmed from the supplemental rate, where staff expressed that BC Hydro should probably absorb the remaining undepreciated costs of existing fixtures with the capital costs of new fixtures by holding the electrical rates the same until these costs have been recovered. And then lower the electrical rates, provided that LEDs are going to provide energy savings and maintenance cost savings. And so the rates should reflect this. So in late December, the BCUC provided municipalities with the opportunity to intervene, and we jumped right on board with the opportunity to intervene. We didn't agree with this rate structure. So as was asked before by a councillor, this intervention or intervener or this chance to intervene gives us an opportunity after the interim rates have been approved, but before finalization, to kind of speak our piece and say why we don't agree with this rate change being forced upon us. The timing is good for the LED lighting upgrades. As we've all seen, many people believe that lighting is inadequate in the district, and an LED upgrade would certainly address some of these issues. But we do not feel that the rates should be increased. Again, with what was mentioned with the savings in electrical costs and with maintenance costs as well. So, as mentioned before, LED upgrades are viewed as beneficial to a community. This is especially true when considering some of the needs that we've seen presented in the district throughout 2020 regarding inadequate lighting. But unfortunately, these lighting upgrades have a cost, and staff do not believe that the district should have to bear these costs of these replacements. And thus, we've engaged as an intervener and are imposing BC Hydro's proposed downloading of costs to the municipality. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Mr. Card. Good for you. Any questions from council? Councillor Hoffel?
I have two questions, actually. Through the mayor, Rory, if the conversion to LED will make a positive contribution to decarbonization, is there any grant funding available for that?
The grant funding would be for BC Hydro, essentially, or who's doing the changeover. Again, that's their infrastructure, so it's not really our place to go after funding to make up any gaps with their infrastructure. But I can certainly find out more.
Okay, because like my other part was BC Hydro. They do an annual delegation to mayor and council, and every year I ask the same question, like, what do you give to the community? And every year they say, well, we give the grant funding to a student, either $500 or $1,000. But, BC Hydro, to me, they put up a lot of fences, they restrict access, they raise rates, they ask for right-of-ways at no cost. And it really is time for us to speak up, and the district shouldn't have to bear the costs of these replacements. And I totally support the process to oppose BC Hydro's proposed costs to the municipality, including those undepreciated value of the current streetlights upon replacement, because just with the financial implications, it comes out to what, just over $3,000 a year. But it's $3,000 a year, so good for you guys to become that barrier in between. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hoppel. Councillor Leach, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Card. That was a very good report. I also, I guess, out of previous discussion that I've had with mayor and council, I'd also like to add in a motion to this report that we have a letter from mayor and council forwarded to UBCM regarding this, just so we have a little bit more political stance. I'm not sure how to word that, so if staff can jump in, that would be great.
Thank you, Councillor Leach. Deniger, can you?
Yes, so you're looking for a resolution requesting UBCM to engage as an intervener in the process?
I believe so, yes. I'm just referring to an email sent from the city of Vernon. Sorry, I'm going to just pull it up and just see if I can see it here. We were forwarded a letter from the city of Vernon to state, it went to UBCM, but it was stating that the city of Vernon has also made the application of intervener, and for the reasons listed above, and then it was CC'd to all UBC members. So I would like to also provide a letter to UBCM in the same instance.
Are we looking
sure if Mr. G or Taylor want to try to draft that right now, but I think I know what you're after.
Okay.
Basically, that staff be directed to forward a letter to UBCM encouraging them to be an intervener in the BC Hydro street lighting replacement project.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Howe, you're next.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Rory and staff, for all of your hard work on this. I'm glad that it didn't slip under the radar and that you guys have a firm pulse on what's going on here and all of the potential savings and holding BC Hydro accountable. Going back to the staff inventory of streetlights, within that inventory, do we have an inventory of the District of Lillooet owned streetlights? Was that also counted?
Yes, by process of elimination from the inventory or data gathered from BC Hydro, we have determined some of the areas where we actually own the streetlights. Absolutely.
Do you happen to know how many? I'm curious, and I didn't see it in the report, so I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
it's 10.
Okie dokie then. It's a lot less than I'd anticipated.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Hoppel, you had a question?
I was just going to second Councillor Leach's motion to write the letter. I didn't know if we needed a second or not. So I will if we did.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a matter of procedure, the amendment to the original motion does need to be voted on, and then the motion as a whole needs to be voted on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just waiting for comments from Councillor Weed.
Yeah, great report, Rory. I just wanted to let everybody know that after being on the SILGA meeting this week, a lot of the southern interior towns are also intervening on this topic. It was a big subject throughout the interior.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Howe.
I know we've already discussed this, Rory, and you're going to get tired of, sorry, Mr. Card, and you're going to get tired of me asking, but we're outside of the intervening, we're also looking at a process of holding BC Hydro accountable for current maintenance as soon as possible, yes?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're always about holding holding companies like these accountable for sure.
Okay, I'm watching the streetlights dwindle and I'm going, oh my gosh, we really need them to come and fix these immediately.
Well, we actually there's a reporting program. It's actually a SLIM program where we can actually report an outage or a problem with light instantly. And that's our front desk is really good at doing that.
Okay.
Do we happen to know, sorry if I may, do we happen to know what the turnaround time is? Like, are we tracking that from when the request goes in to when they actually come in and maintain?
Well, that depends, I guess, on their workload and things like that. But I should say that our local boots on the ground BC Hydro crew are great, and we've worked with them quite a bit. So I know it's nothing. It's not apathy on their part, that's for sure.
Okay, thank you. Now, I assume we have an addendum that needs to be moved and seconded and voted on, that staff be directed to have a letter from mayor and council directed to the UBCM to encourage them as an intervener with the BC Hydro lighting replacement and like. So I assume Councillor Leach, you want to move?
Yes.
And a seconder? Councillor Howe? Any further discussion on this addendum? Good, I think it's a good one. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Any further discussion before we go back to the original recommendation? Oh, okay, I need someone to move that the BC Hydro Street Lighting Replacement Project report dated January 27, 2021 be received for information, and that staff be directed to have mayor and council send a letter to UBCM to encourage them as an intervener. Who will so move? Councillor Hoppel, second Councillor Leach. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you, folks, and thank you, Mr. Card.
Thank you.
Okay, 11.6, resolution of support for Southern Interior Local Government Association Executive Board candidates. So I see we have one name and we have another that you're searching for, Mr. Deniger.
So there can be as many as there are members of council. There's only so many spots on SILGA. I know that Councillor Weeb has announced her interest in running again. Thank you. This is an organization intended to represent the municipalities at the political level, so your level. If there's anyone else interested in running, you are certainly welcome to put your name forward and discuss it right now. There's no need that council actually pass a resolution formally supporting any of your candidacies, but it is looked on very positively by the Silverthorne organization. So it really is up to you as council to decide if you want to participate in the election process. I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Denegar. Any other interest from councillors? Councillor Howe?
How do I put this? I am interested, but still in communications with my spouse. So we have until next meeting to put our name forward. Is that correct? To allow for council to put their name on support, or?
Yeah, the deadline for submitting nominations is Friday. They say Friday, February 28th. Is that how the calendar works? I think that should maybe be it's the 28th. It's the end of the month. But yes, the next council meeting is scheduled for 2 weeks' time from now. So the last time to get support officially from council would be at the next meeting. Not to say that if you miss that deadline, you can't still put your name forward to Silga directly.
Thank you, Mr. Denegar. So, anybody else interested in the position as a director on the executive board? Any other councillors? Councillor Leach?
If Councillor Howe decides that she is unable or decides not to put her name forward, I would be interested in putting my name forward, but only as a last option, just so we can have some more representation from this end of the Southern Interior.
Right. Well, I'm suggesting that we take this and what's the proper terminology, Mr. Taylor? We'll deal with it at the next meeting. That will give Councillor Howe time and others to make up their mind, and we can still pass a resolution as full support from this council for whoever the candidacy will be.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you can defer the second item or just direct staff to bring it to the next meeting and then consider the first item for Councillor Weeb now.
Okay. Let's do that. I need someone to move that Councillor Barbara Weeb's candidacy for the position of director on the executive board of Silga be supported. Who moves? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Huffel. Call the question. Those in favor? Carried. And item 2, we will defer this until the next meeting. Is that sufficient process, Mr. Taylor?
Yes, that will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Councillor Weeb, and good luck, Councillor Howe. There being no bylaws and resolutions, work in progress. We have work in progress to January 28, 2021. I need someone to move that the work in progress as of January 28, 2021 be received for information. Councillor Howe, second. No seconder. Oh, Councillor Weeb. Any questions, comments? Well done, staff. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Denegar. There be no notice of motion. We'll move to the report from the mayor. On January 20th, attended an OCP session by Zoom. On January 26th, we had a strategic planning committee of the whole. On January 28th, we had a committee of the whole operating budget on Teams. And on January 29th, the mayors and regional chairs teleconference meeting with Minister of Municipal Affairs and the UBCM president happened. We received update from the minister, and essentially the public health orders are extended to February 6th midnight. They've checked legally, there's no restriction of interprovincial travel. The vaccines for frontline and care home workers and underway since December. And the vaccines for general population are planned from April to September 2021. Clinics to be held in larger centers. Obviously, this is if they achieve the vaccines from Europe in time. They'll have a complete rollout and information process available to the public in late February, we've been promised. Another thing the Minister of Municipal Affairs mentioned, they're reviewing the infrastructure funding streams, and they'll be announcing over spring and summer this year. There are a few that are ongoing, and they're going to, I'm sure Mr. Deniger and staff will be watching, arranging for some of the streams to be available or logged available by the end of February. Mr. Finkel, the president of UBCM, highlighted a number of items, and he stated that the UBCM and the municipalities have broad support for UNDRIP and the reconciliation process, and they'll be working, lobbying the provincial government. Their support for more mental health services in the communities and funding for that. They see that as coming in the next few months. And they are lobbying the province very hard for more consultation by province for with local governments. And also must strengthen the financial systems of local governments. Obviously, that's a big item that I'm sure that we are all interested in. That's it for me. Councillor Hoppel.
Okay, January 18th, I attended the Committee of the Whole with the MODIS report regarding the occupation or the official community plan. And then the regular council meeting, January 20th, again, the MODIS meeting and with staff input and mayor and council is very interesting and yeah, just a real interesting layout. And I am so excited for this official community plan to be implemented. It's going to be great. It really, truly is. The 26th, I attended the Committee of the Whole to finalize the municipal objectives for 2021-22. It's going to be a busy couple of years, but we have a great staff, and I know that they're really quite capable of pulling all that stuff off that we desire with our dreams and wishes. The 28th, we had our first financial budget meeting, and that will pay for all our dreams and wishes. But you know, and I've had over the last couple of weeks lots of conversations with the president of the Historical Society, and that's Mrs. Vera Bussey. And you know, she really is working so hard to put this Historical Society, get it grounded again. And she has just been working on the organizational process and just doing really well, organizing staff, organizing what's going to happen. And yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you to her. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Hoppel. Councillor Howe.
Okay. So Wednesday, January 20th was the official community plan discussion, which was interesting, you know, diving a little bit deeper into the findings and having those deeper discussions with council and with MODIS staff around what this really means and how it could come together. So it was really very exciting. Friday, January 22nd, there was a Tourism Lillooet meeting, and they're looking at what is going to be needed for upcoming 2021 tourism season. So with that upon us, many conversations to be had. Tuesday, January 26th was the Committee of the Whole Strategic Planning meeting, which is always interesting. There's so many things that we want for the community with only so much to do it with. So there was much discussion around that. Thursday, January 28th, I attended the operating budget meeting. That is it for me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Howe. Councillor Leach.
All right. So January 25th, I had a NDIT RAC committee meeting, which I'm going to very happily share, and I'm going to take the thunder away from Mr. Denegar a little bit. But we were awarded a $30,000 grant for the Memorial Garden upgrade over in East Lillooet. So I'm really, really, really excited about that. It's been a long progress, and I know that the folks involved are hoping to have some things started this spring. And if Mr. Denegar has anything else to add to that, feel free. January 20th, we had the Committee of the Whole, the OCP meeting with Modus. And was it Modus? Oh my goodness, my notes are terrible. Sorry. We also had a strategic planning committee of the whole January 26th, the operating budget on January 28th. And I also sat down with our CAO, Mr. Denegar, on the 19th for part of his annual review. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Leach. Councillor Weeb.
You always save me for last. Must have something to do with the initials. On January the 18th, I attended the Committee of the Whole for the OCP and the regular council meeting. On January 20th, I did a CAO performance review with Mr. Denegar. It went fairly well. I had a couple of good questions that weren't listed. And I also attended the Committee of the Whole for the OCP on that evening. On January 21st, I attended the first strategic planning session for the SLRD. And they used the same whiteboard that Modus did. So I felt like I knew something. It was great. On the 26th, I attended the strategic planning session for the district. On January 27th, I attended another SLRD meeting. The morning was basically a remembrance for Graham Haywood, the staff member that lost his life in the avalanche. It was very touching. His wife was there via Zoom as well. So it was a pretty emotional morning, and then we went into a closed session. Also on the 27th, I bowed out for 2 hours to attend a SILCA meeting via Zoom. I'm becoming really good at getting in and out of these sessions, unbeknownst to Mr. Taylor. We reviewed the finances and confirmed some of the speakers for the upcoming convention. And they're planning for a virtual AGM in February or March. So far, we've received 4 submissions for the Community Excellence Awards. Oliver, Karamias, Coldstream, and Lillooet. So we'll be voting. Let's hope. On the 28th, I continued with the SLRD Committee of the Whole, and it was a budget meeting all about the beginning. So we'll see where Lillooet fares on that one. And we did a second round of strategic planning. That was my month until today.
Thank you, Councillor Weeb. Thank you all, councillors. Item 17.1, Mr. Denegar.
Thank you. Councillor Leach did steal my thunder, but I have a little bit of other news to say. So really just going over grants, summing up for as much for the public. Some of this has been sent around via email to council. But to review, we've got the UBCM Housing Needs Assessment, 100% funding up to $15,000. We were successful in getting the NDIT grant writing support. That's up to 76% funding for up to $8,000. That's Lori Reimer, same person we had last year. We've got the NDIT Facade Improvement Program renewed for this year. So 50% funding for each participating business, up to $5,000 per project. With a total of $20,000 available, and we'll be launching that later this month. so that there's a lot more time than in previous years. And of course, the NDIT Community Places program for the East Lillooet Internment Memorial Garden, that $30,000 grant we were awarded, is in addition to other funding, which totals at this point $57,000 towards that project, which we will start once it warms up. So that amounts to, just this month, we've received $73,000 in funding. I will try to keep that up for the other 11 months. I did earlier today ask senior staff in an email, just casually, what are you up to? What's going on? And I thought I'd get a couple of highlights. What I got was a list that was so long that I actually have to scroll it on my screen here in front of me. I think they may have been triggered by a question asked at our strategic planning session. So what I will do is I will take these lists and I will email them to council so you can get a peek into what staff are working on. And this is still above and beyond just the day-to-day stuff, but it's interesting to actually see, and even interesting for me to see what their day-to-day involves and the number of projects they're doing that staff consider just necessary projects to continually improve our organization. So I think you'll find it enlightening, and if council wishes, we can add it as an official document onto the next agenda or something like that for the public to see what we're up to. Some of it will be spoken of as well during our budget process coming up, just so you can get an idea of what's eating up our time and money. Other than that, let's move on to the next item unless there's any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Deniger. I think that's a great idea. Any questions, comments from council? Councillor Leach?
I just wanted to say, like, I know this last year has been really, really tough on everybody. You know, even transitioning from these meetings online and at home. But I'm really proud of where we as council are at. I'm really proud of where our staff are at too. I know the first year that we were in these seats was hard on a lot of people. And I know that we had a lot of questions from the community about what the heck we were doing. But as the OCP plays out, as the strategic plan goes, and as we see these projects start to come to fruition, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. So that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Leach. Nice comments. Any other comments from council? Thank you very much, folks. There being no new business, we'll move on to item 19.1. The meeting is open to questions from the media and public. Mr. Taylor, do we have questions from media and public?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No one has indicated in the chat, but I will give any of the attendees a 5 count to put into the chat that they would like to ask a question.
If I could interrupt, though, I do believe we have item 18.1, Rio Tinto.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, I forgot about that. My apologies. We'll back out of 19. Sorry, folks. So, Councillor Howe, can you read the item of correspondence, please, that you referred to?
Yes.
And next time, don't be afraid to jump in if you see me skipping it over. I didn't write it on my agenda. Apologies.
That's fine. I was actually going to push the little hand button to raise my hand after you were done speaking, and then we could just flip back. So thank you for beating me to it. Okay, so let's see, 54 to 60. Let me just skip to the page. Hold on.
It's on page 58 for anyone looking for it.
Thank you, Councillor Leach. Okay. All right. So sorry, Mr. Mayor, you would like me to read out the full letter, or?
No, of course not. But you have an issue with it. Obviously, we have to accept it as correspondence, but is there anything that you would like to see addressed?
I do have a
for an
question.
action item, or is it just a matter that you want to elaborate on it? I'll leave that with you, and then we can decide once we hear from you.
Sure, thank you. So through the mayor to staff, I'm curious, do we have an emergency response plan? Should we be alerted by Rio Tinto in an emergency event?
Darren can take this.
Okay, thank you. Through your mayor, Councillor Howe, yes, we do. We've met with Rio Tinto for the last 2 years. And like they've said in the letter, they actually last year came right to the community and sat down and discussed this. So this is an obligation that dam operators have to have. So any communities downstream, they actually have to have a plan of their own. But we do have our own response plans for, in general, flooding. So with this as well, we also meet with BC Hydro Dam Safety Group, and we have a plan. So every year, they were bringing us the hard copies, but I see now this is a much better way of saying, here it is, download it. And I got this correspondence last week as well, so I'm in the process of getting rid of the other one and putting this brand new one. So this happens every year, yes.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Howe, did you want to see any action, or is it just a matter of discussion?
And no, it was just discussion and question. I just wanted to ensure, and I had a hunch that, of course, Mr. Oipi would have this in full control, but thought I'd ask just in case.
Thank you for that. I need you to move then that the correspondence from Rio Tinto Kenny Dam Emergency Plan be received. Will you move, Councillor Howe? Yes, I need a seconder. Councillor Leach. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? No. Carried. Thank you. Now, apologies, folks. I'm on to 19.1 now. The meeting is open to questions from the media and public. Mr. Taylor, do we have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, I promised a 5 count. I think they got about a 200 count and no questions were raised.
Okay, thank you very much. Very succinct meeting then. Good information. Need someone to move that the February 1st, 2021 regular council meeting be adjourned. Who will do that? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Wiebe. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. Thank you for anyone out there watching. Much appreciated. Well done. Good night.